Welcome to the Interstate Mets Report with your hosts, Nelson and Chris.
Yo, what is up, everyone? It is your boy Chris CP with my co-host Nelson from the Interstate Mets Report show, episode 41, Pitchers and Catchers. We are here with another episode. We'll have a very special guest on here in just a second. We'll prop him up, but first I want to say what's up to my co-host Nelson. Caught myself in between words there. It's a little bit of a rough Friday for me, Nelson. So how are you doing today?
I'm all right. I've actually for once had a little bit of a slow Friday, so I'm hanging in there. I've been doing some updates to logos and whatnot, as some people will be able to, or most people should be able to see. And yeah, just ready to talk some ball.
Absolutely. And if you all at home cannot tell, we do have a new Interstate Mets Report logo. It's a beautiful logo, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I know it's a little bit different, might take some time getting used to. And also the graphics, we are in full transition now to pitchers and catchers and spring training coming up. You see the beautiful palm tree here. You see the green text. Spring is almost here. Spring training live action is almost here. And the New York Mets 40-man roster is in Port St. Lucie and ready to rock. So we'll be talking all about that today. We'll go into some of Lindor's comments, talk about some prospects here that we're most excited to watch in this upcoming spring training. As always, make sure you all are following us on X, our joint account, Interstate Mets. Go ahead, go to X, follow it. Appreciate it. Follow me at CPNY Sports on X and Instagram. You know where to find Nelson as well on X. And obviously, all of our YouTube handles are in the description down below. Make sure you're subscribing if you're new here. Without further ado, let's bring on today's guest. All right. I am joined here by Randy from the All Things Mets podcast on YouTube. Randy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. It's a great day. Like I said, it's Friday. We're going to kick off a long weekend. We got spring training coming up, and we're just appreciative of you giving your time here and sort of chopping it up with us, talking some ball. So we definitely appreciate it.
For sure.
If y'all don't subscribe to Randy's YouTube, make sure you go ahead and do so. The link's going to be in the description down below. He is at All Things Mets. I believe you are on X as well at Randy Talks Mets, if I'm not mistaken as well.
That is correct. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. It should be a conversation. As always, you guys know, with the Interstate Mets Report, subscribe to everyone's channels that's on the screen. Make sure you drop those comments in live chat. And speaking of live comments, we are going to get to some. We got Jeff Cohen in the house saying greetings, gents, and he likes our new updated graphics. It's a little bit vibrant. It's a nice vibe. We're heading into spring, and I love it. Nelson, how are you feeling? Are you getting the spring vibes as well over here? What's the deal?
I mean, it's still freezing where I'm at, but we're trying to get this spring vibe.
Man.
Yeah, you can't do it. Randy, is it snowing by you over there yet or not?
Oh man, it was snowing the other day. New York, man. We don't get a lot of snow, but definitely it was snowing the other day. It was like a little snowstorm, but yeah, it's cold, man. I want the warm weather. I want the spring. I want the warm weather. Like, come on.
To say, I wish I was in Port St. Lucie myself.
Move the show to Florida. Let's just fly down. Let's screw it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I concur with that. But speaking of Florida, we do have spring training coming up. We do have live action in just about a week. We are finally getting into that transition from Mets offseason talk to Mets MLB spring training talk. So let's get into it because we will be seeing some up-and-coming faces, some MLB prospects coming up in the Mets organization. Some are on the 40-man roster and some got non-40-man roster spring training invites. You see all of those young up-and-coming players, that talent on your screen. All of these prospects will be making an appearance in spring training for the New York Mets. My question to you all is, and we'll have a little bit of a roundtable discussion here surrounding these prospects, not only which prospect are you most excited to watch, but I'm not sure if you all follow Will Salmon on X. Nelson, I'm sure you do. Randy, I'm not sure if you saw the latest news, but Mr. Jet Williams, the guy that is on your screen right now, is going to be playing center field in some sort of capacity along with second base or middle infield or wherever. in spring training. How do you feel about that, Randy? And also, which of these prospects are you most excited to watch?
I'm definitely excited for Jet Williams playing the outfield because Jet Williams came up as a shortstop, didn't really have a position, but I say he needs to play different positions. We've seen in Double A he was playing different positions. I like his speed. I like what he brings to the table. His bat, I love his bat. But his speed, just he looks like a guy that has a lot of high energy, and that's what I love about Jet Williams. But man, the most excited I'm excited for is Drew Gilbert. I think Drew Gilbert is going to be an amazing prospect for the New York Mets. I was so happy when the Mets got him, man, from that Justin Verlander trade, because this guy is a stud. This guy, was in college, a really good hitter. He brings power. He has speed. He has the high energy, man. That's what you want in a player. That is exactly what you want.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Nelson, you know my thoughts on Drew Gilbert. That is my favorite, and it has been my favorite prospect ever since he got into the Mets organization. So,
Yeah, man, Drew Gilbert, he's a stud, or he looks like he's gonna be a stud. I'm trying to get away from like making predictions about these kids because we all know bad things can happen, good things can happen too. But so I'm trying to be more objective with my talk about these kids. But yeah, Gilbert looks like he's got the goods. My guy is Jet Williams. I'm definitely excited to see what he can do. No surprise to me that he's playing the outfield, center field. He did play some center field in the minors on a limited basis last year. So that seemed to be something they were going to try all along. So, I mean, we'll see. We have way too many shortstop prospects, and not all of them can play shortstop. Hell, technically, none of them can play shortstop because Lindor's our shortstop. So they're going to have to find places to go. So you're going to start seeing these kids move around the diamond. So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to their new positions.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jet Williams is no exception. So from playing like baseball in that perspective, middle infielders typically have that sort of makeup of being able to translate well to the outfield. Now, a lot of people get it twisted and think that those outfield reads, those balls hit right at you is going to come naturally to these infielders. That is something that Jet Williams, if he's seriously and the Mets are seriously considering putting him at center field, is going to have to go through those growing pains. And he's going to make errors in center field. I can't tell you how many times I've seen new center fielders, right, learning that position and trying to learn that position, come up on the ball that should be going back on preliminarily. We saw it with Brandon Nimmo coming up as well before he actually refined his defense. He would always come in on balls and he'd get burned over the top. That is something that Jet Williams is going to have to learn as a new player, not only just in spring training in the Mets organization, right, coming up and playing with the big guys, but also learning that new position. So that is something that we definitely need to have a little bit patience for. We know that he's a natural infielder, but just his tool set, the skills that he possesses, and the ability to at least give the Mets flexibility to move him there is something that is absolutely just you can't speak it into words. Like that is what you like to see with the New York Mets, because Nelson's right. You have a plethora of infielders now, especially up the middle in your farm system. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Marco Vargas, Jet Williams, Luis Angel Acuna, who will also be seeing here. I think they're not committed to playing him in the outfield as much as they are Jet Williams, but we will see. That is still maybe somewhat on the table. Colin Houck, Marco Vargas, all these guys, Jeremiah Jackson, all these guys, man. Randy, what is your take on that?
Man, I think that they need these guys to play the outfield because they don't have really anybody in the outfield. That's why you need to play these guys, Jet Williams. You need to play Drew Gilbert in the outfield because they don't really have anybody, in the core. Just Brandon Nimmo and Starlin Marte. You got Marte until 2026. Brandon Nimmo, he's gonna be here. But Jet Williams, I would like him to play the outfield. Drew Gilbert, definitely, he's an outfielder. He's going to be a stud. Me personally, Alex Ramirez, I thought he was going to be a really good outfielder for the New York Mets. He just hasn't taken that step, that step in the right direction offensively, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we saw that with a struggled 2023 campaign. If you all didn't check out my video on Kevin Parada and Alex Ramirez, I dropped a video this morning about them, talking about just some of their strengths, some of their weaknesses in the seasons that they had in 2023. Alex Ramirez, which was Joe DeMayo's number 4 Mets overall prospect going to 2023, slid 14 spots down to number 18 going into 2024. That is a testament to the Mets building up that sort of farm system, but it's also a detriment to say that Alex Ramirez, to say the least, struggled in 2023. Now, he did struggle in 2023. He was 20 years old. He's going into 2024 being 21 years old. I'm not ready to write this kid off. And I said this in my video as well. I cannot write this 21-year-old kid off. This is a guy, when the Mets were winning 101 ball games in that middle of the season, when they were trying to actively engage teams to upgrade their lineup in 2022, his name was at the centerpiece of all these trade talks, and they decided to hold on to him. Same thing this past November. They had a decision not to lose him in the Rule 5 draft. Guess what? They picked up his contract, put him in the 40-man roster, and they mitigated any sort of potential of losing him. Nelson, do you have any sort of opinions on Alex Ramirez and even Kevin Parada, those two guys relatively coming off of down years to their standards, and how they can, I guess, sort of bounce back in the season?
Yeah, it's funny because it seems like we're all like almost sharing a brain, because I was just thinking of bringing my Talking Mets on the farm back, and I was going to touch on Ramirez, and I'm going to touch on Ramirez and Parada both. Listen, Ramirez, very toolsy guy. Everybody, when we picked him up, signed him in 2019, said he could be a 5-tool guy. And when he came up, he looked the part, right? It's 2022. He had a pretty solid season. He went split time in Double-A and in Brooklyn, not in Double-A, in St. Lucie and in Brooklyn. Sorry. And I mean, in St. Lucie, he had an 802 OPS, hit 284. In Brooklyn, he hit 278 out of 756 OPS. But then last year, they started him in Brooklyn again, and I think most of us fans expected him to, at the very least, make it to Double-A by the end of last year. And it never happened because let's face it, he stunk. He hit 221 for the season. He only had a 627 OPS in 120 games. Listen, the kid, he still has great speed. He's an excellent outfielder, but he's got to hit. And if he doesn't hit, he's just going to be another in the long line of Mets failed outfield prospects. And the Mets have a ton of them that have been talked up. I mean, we've seen it. It feels like all the huge prospects that have failed, a large majority of them have been outfielders. Like they were outfielders. They all had the same pedigree. They all were like 5-tool league type guys, and they all just sucked. I mean, I could go down the line, like Lastings Village, Escobar, Fernando Martinez. That's just to name a few. Right. And you hope that that's not what's going on here. But this isn't really a make or break year for him. I'm never going to write off a prospect after one bad year, but he has to show up this year. He has to show that he can be the player that he was when we signed him as an international free agent. And if he doesn't, then he probably goes in that graveyard with all those guys I mentioned. It's sad, but let's face it, we got to be real. Like, one bad year as a minor leaguer, you can bounce back from usually. 2, it doesn't normally happen. Like, so this is a make or break year for him. He's probably going to start in Brooklyn again, and we'll see where it goes from there. Parada, real quick. I mean, he's a guy I personally, and I talked him up a lot out of college. He looked the part. In college, the guy could flat out mash. He's not a good defender. I never really saw him sticking at catcher, even and obviously we have Alvarez, so that kind of made it hard for him to stick at catcher anyway. But I never really saw him sticking at catcher with the Mets. I always really did hope that, in the grand scheme of things, I felt like he would play himself into being like the main chip in a big trade, right? And my hope for him would be he would play well enough that he would really get us a nice piece back. And that didn't last year. I mean, he started off decent. It's really when he got called up to Binghamton right around that time he got hurt, and he just didn't have a good rest of the year. And then he went to the Arizona Fall League and he looked like crap as well.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning of the year, he was hitting. So again, he's another guy. I wouldn't write him off after 1 year. I think the bat will play. What happens with his defense? Who knows? But in the grand scheme of things, I do think no matter what, he's a trade chip. It's whether or not he can be the main trade chip or if he's going to be like a throw-in piece that some team will take because he's a guy that can hit and could possibly play catcher. I hope it's that he does make himself like a legitimate trade candidate. But we'll see what happens. I'm definitely not giving up on either of those guys, but they have to step up this year. If they don't, then it sucks because we're gonna have two prospects that probably nobody really wants to trade for anyway.
Yeah, and I agree with that absolutely. Jeff is posting that question here that you mentioned about Kevin Parada being a potential trade chip with Alvarez being the catcher of the foreseeable future. I basically said, like you said, a throw-in piece maybe if he does well and comes back in 2024 and does well, he could be that main candidate, that main trade chip for the New York Mets, whether it's getting an MLB ready bat or maybe bolstering their rotation. I believe Jeff was saying because Senga's the only one really that's solidified into this rotation next season besides the prospects that you see on the list here. That is something where I'm not writing Kevin Parada off by any stretch of the imagination in terms of his talent level, but I'm also not ready to commit to him long-term being in this organization, given the roster holes that the Mets are still going to have to fill in 2025. And you're right. He got off to a pretty good start, to be honest with you. In high A ball, he was hitting 265 with 11 home runs. And as soon as he got to double A, only 14 games, like you said, that injury was a little bit weird. He hit 185, and that's where people really just started writing Parada off. Coupled to the fact that he's also 3 months older than Francisco Alvarez. You see where Alvarez is at right now versus where Parada's at. Parada hasn't even cracked double A ball legitimately yet, and then Alvarez being 3 months younger is already at the major league level. Now, I don't think that's fair to Parada, to be honest with you, with how their sort of career started. Obviously, Parada went to Georgia Tech, had a phenomenal 2 seasons at Georgia Tech. You're talking about 318 with 9 home runs as a freshman, then catching a power surge with 26 home runs and 367 batting average in his sophomore season before being drafted by the Mets. It's absolutely insane. It is a night and day difference in terms of his stance. I get people are worried about those clips that are being posted on X and Twitter about his hacks on the field right now and the cuts that he's taking. A lot of pre-pitch movement, a lot of swing gurus on the app trying to judge this young 22-year-old and his swing. I would not worry about Kevin Parada offensively, but like you said, what do they do with him defensively? I don't think they pulled a plug on Kevin Parada catching. I think he's still going to be a catcher, and we saw Parada and Alvarez working together a couple days ago via SNY on that video, but there are options. When he was first coming up into the draft, a lot of organizations saw him as a potential outfield candidate. They didn't want him to catch at all at the major league level. They just wanted to make him to an outfielder right away to preserve that bat. Because what the special thing about Francisco Alvarez, in my opinion, what he did last season, I know the bat tapered off a little bit, but he showed he was very capable of power, and he also handled the staff really well, which is very hard for young catchers to do well simultaneously. And that's why I respect what Francisco Alvarez did last season. But Kevin Parada has not shown the ability to do that yet in the minor leagues. Randy, what's your take on that? Because a lot of people are having discourse about Kevin Parada. Do you think he's legitimately an option to move to the outfield or be that everyday DH perhaps if his bat comes alive in Double A? Or do you think that he is going to be that trade chip that we're all talking about?
I don't think that he has any shot in the outfield. I don't think that Kevin Parada has any. I don't want to see him in the outfield. But I think if his bat comes alive, he can be a potential DH if his bat comes alive. But man, I don't know. This guy, like you said, he struggled in the Arizona Fall League. He struggled, in Double A. So is this guy a trade chip? We already know that Alvarez has the job. He's going to be the catcher for the foreseeable future for many years. So what do they do with Parada? Do they give him this year improve, and maybe he becomes a better hitter. I don't really. I think the Mets, if he does become a really good hitter in AA, maybe take advantage of his value. I mean, maybe trade him. I'm not the highest on Parada at the moment. I'm really not at the moment.
Right. Yeah, and it makes sense, absolutely. And I think that's where a lot of people are heading. I'm not high on Parada because I think that he has a lot of roadblocks defensively blocking him from seeing the Major League diamond. Alvarez, obviously, at the catching position. Obviously, a lot of people were also talking about maybe you can make him a first baseman. Well, we don't know what's going to happen with Pete Alonso. And also,
right about that.
Pete Alonso inevitably walks. I know that's the worst case scenario. If he does, then you have Mark Vientos, if he does well, potentially being that internal candidate or free agency because there's a couple first basemen on the market. So I don't think first base is a realistic possibility for him either. I think the only real sort of situation is he hits lights out and the Mets have any confidence of him being that internal DH candidate. And if they don't, then I'm sorry, Kevin Parada is probably going to be the odd man out. And we all probably could have foreshadowed this anyways when they first drafted him. Like, we already had Francisco Alvarez in that pipeline. So I guess, like, you have to take best player available. He was scheduled to be top 10 in that draft in 2022. He somehow fell to the Mets' laps because a lot of teams are passing up on him. He had the option to go back to college if he wanted to. A lot of teams didn't want to waste that draft pick. But, yeah, no, it's something where you had to take best player available. But now you have a viable candidate piece. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you, minus maybe a couple names on this list. I know pitching is thin, so those bottom three guys are probably safe, maybe with the exception of Vasil. Jay Williams is safe, and Drew Gilbert's safe. Everybody else on this list, even Ryan Clifford that Emmy's mentioning here, comment section, even, Colin Houck, Marco Vargas, you name it. These guys, nobody's off limits, minus maybe 4 or 5 guys in the system. The pitchers, probably off limits. Jet Williams and Drew Gilbert, probably off limits. But you see here in that answer that Carlos Mendoza gave today, I believe someone asked him, what's going to happen with Luis Angel Acuna? Well, they're not going to commit to him at an outfield. They're saying he's going to split time between shortstop and second base. Okay, we all know shortstop's not a legitimate option at the major league level with Lindor being here for how many more years he's here, right? Second base, yeah, absolutely. We can do that and we can see that, but I wouldn't call him an untouchable prospect either by any of the stretch of the imagination. So, anyways, those are the bats. Let's talk about some of the pitching here. Christian Scott, Mike Vasil, Dominic Hamill. Do we have a consensus of who we're excited for? I know I saw a video of Mike Vasil striking out Francisco Alvarez with 95 miles per hour up in the zone a couple days ago during live batting practice. What do you all think about these pitchers? Because as Jeff was saying, the only legitimate candidate to be in this rotation contractually is going to be Kodai Senga. Luis Severino is going to be a free agent if they don't resign him. Sean Manaea, if he does well, is probably going to opt out of that contract and test free agency again. That's a huge if, but that's also a possibility, right? I think, actually correct myself, the only person that would still be here is maybe like a Tyler McGill. Joey Lucchesi is a free agent. Adrien Hower is a free agent. Jose Quintana is a free agent. You know where I'm going with this. So these three guys, maybe more so Christian Scott and Mike Vasil, because I think Dominic Hamill is a little bit further away, but nonetheless, we'll be seeing him. Which of these guys are you most excited to see? I think the consensus probably is Christian Scott, but I want to get y'all's thoughts and opinions on this.
I mean, I'm definitely excited for Vasil. I like Mike Vasil. I think this guy is going to be a good pitcher for the Mets. Like you said, that 95, that fastball. I like him. I really do like him. He had a really good AA. Then he went to AAA, and he struggled. He struggled, and he wasn't so good. So I think he needs a little bit more time in AAA. Let's see what he has in AAA, and then if he does really good, maybe bring him up. Maybe if there's a spot. But I like him. I definitely like Vasil. Christian Scott, I also like him. I think I've heard that he's the most completed pitcher out of all the three. But I also like Dominic Hamill. I like him. I think we were gonna see him in the WBC, and then for some reason I don't know why he didn't pitch. Or they didn't put him to pitch out there. But I like these guys. But these guys, you want these guys to be like a Harvey, a DeGrom. You want these guys to be like like a Syndergaard. Because obviously when we saw those kids coming up, we were so excited. But these guys, Is this the next crop of pitchers that's really gonna, help them? I don't know, but I think that the Mets need pitching. But I'm not concerned so much about Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, because I know that in 2025 that it's not going to be like 2024. The Mets are not going to spend in 2025, and I know that for sure. I know that for sure. And you got so much pitching in 2025. You possibly, a lot. Zach Wheeler. You got Aaron Nola. You got a whole bunch of guys that possibly the Mets could sign. So,
there's a cream of the crop there in that free agency. I think Aaron Nola just signed that deal. Zach Wheeler for sure, but I think Max Fried, Walker Buehler, a couple other names out there. Corbin Burns, we'll see what his situation is in Baltimore with that new ownership group, but we'll definitely see. Nelson, I know where you're going with this. You're gonna say Christian Scott, aren't you?
I mean, obviously, here's the thing. Castle is the closest one. If whatever happens, he'll probably be up first out of all the pitchers, I would think. But Christian Scott, he's got the best stuff out of all our pitchers. He's, in my opinion, going to be the best one out of all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he could be he could develop into a top of the rotation arm. I'm not saying he will. I really feel that he could. I see Vassell and Hamill more as maybe 4 or 5 starters. And that's not a bad thing. We need those two, right? But yeah, I think we'll see Vassell first. I think we will see Scott at some point, maybe towards the end of the year. It all depends on health and everything else, right? If our guys stay healthy, then we might not need to see some of these guys. But if they're not, or if they're just lit up, then we do see some of the reinforcements coming from the minors. Hamill's a guy I like too. He's also probably not a little further away. I don't think he's hit AAA yet. He pitched in AA last year. He did solid. I would have liked to see him in WBC. I want to say he got hurt or something, or tweaked something or something, so they held him back.
Okay.
I think that's what ended up happening. But yeah, I mean, we have guys coming up that will help this rotation, whether it be this year or definitely in the next year. So it's not just Senga by himself. Some of these guys will make it. But yeah, I'm excited to see these guys. And there's also some relievers on the horizon in the minors that I think can help us this year. So yeah, I'm pumped to see. And we're not even talking about the Tidwells of the world and stuff like that.
Yeah, Tidwell.
Sproat.
So there's Sproat. He'll pitch. I don't think he ended up pitching after getting drafted last year, but he'll be pitching. He's another guy. He has rotation upside, but worst case scenario, he could be a high leverage reliever for you. It's going to be depending on whether he can command his pitches. Really.
What's your guys' real opinion on Jose Budo? I know we're not talking about him, but he's also a guy that could be in the mix in the rotation. And he, down the stretch, he pitched pretty good, but that was the last couple of months of the season. So I don't know what you guys think of him.
I think Joe DeMayo ranked him at number 17 or something like that in the pipeline right now, but he already made his major league debut by default last season. I think he's probably going to be duking it out with the McGills and the Lucchese's of the world to start off with that 6-man rotation or be that long man in the bullpen. Nelson, what do you think? Because I really think that those are the only 3 guys to serve as your Trevor Williams type long man relief or an opening starter for 6-man rotation, because Carlos Mendoza, I think, and David Stearns said that Senga's going to be getting regular rest at some point this season. I probably would figure it's going to be earlier on than later. So either one of those 3 guys are going to make it, but this 26-man roster is going to be crowded anyways. So I would probably say right now that Buto is going to be the odd man out.
Yeah. I have the list here. DeMayo had him at 19. He's gonna graduate. He's gonna graduate soon, anyways. As long as he stays up or comes up at some point again this season. Right. Buto's okay. I think he could, in theory, fill that Trevor Williams type role for you. not in love with his stuff, but I think he can be serviceable enough. To be honest, I'd rather see him than the McGills and Petersons of the world. I know some
Yeah.
people are high on those guys. I'm not. I just don't. I get tired of watching the same guys just struggle time and time again, and everybody say, "Well, look, he's got." Well, show me you can do something with the stuff you got, because so far you've been crap. So, and then Lucchesi, I mean, he's a 32-year-old guy. It's not like he's a young kid. He's been around the league. He is what he is. I don't think he's that great. I think he can get you a couple starts here or there. So we'll see. I think Budo will definitely be in the mix. The hope is, though, that you don't have to see a lot of these guys as much because that's a Severino and Manaya and Senga are doing that thing, right? And Katana too. And even Hauser. Hauser's a serviceable guy to have on the back end. So you hope those guys can do their job and make us not have to see all these other guys nearly as much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think David's saying over here that he likes Big Drip and Joey Lucchesi more out of the pen anyways, as those sort of long men. So I definitely agree with you. I think those guys, the thing is here to stress is depth, right? Even you're talking about this bullpen, right? The depth with it. Drew Smith, we just went through a whole 26-man projection on the live stream on Wednesday with Talking Mets with Rob. Drew Smith is not even guaranteed a roster spot with how deep this bullpen is right now going into spring training. So I know they tendered him a contract and they probably will give him another chance, but I'm just saying there is competition for those last two spots in the bullpen. And I'm very excited about that happening. So, and I appreciate everyone's in the stream, by the way. Thank you all for dropping those comments. That's my sports Aaron saying, I feel like I see Vasil as our Michael Fulmer. Ethan saying Wheeler, I feel like is going to figure something out with Philly. I agree. I don't think he's going anywhere there, especially not maybe a reunion with the Mets and how things, ended up there. And, I know it's a different regime, but at the end of the day, he probably still has some sour feelings towards New York. Jeff is saying, is Senga expected to pitch every fifth day as opposed to how he pitched in the Japanese league, the Nippon League? Yeah. I think that he is going to get that extended rest to start off this season. I think that's what the front office has alluded to. But I think as we see the season progress, especially if the New York Mets are in that wild card sort of hunt at the deadline, you'll start to see them deploy that, Senga every fifth day into more of a regular schedule and a regular routine. But right now, going into year two, I understand that he figured it out very quickly last season, his rookie year. But I do expect the Mets to go with the 6-man at least to begin the season. I mean, what are your guys' takes on that?
I think it helped. It definitely helped Senga. He it seemed like he needed that rest. He needed that, that 6-man rotation, that rest. That's what he was used to. They were accommodating to him. So it makes sense, why they would do that with him. I want Senga to be at his best, okay? And if that is at his best, if that's what the Mets need to do, then that's what the Mets need to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he did for the most part when he got the extra rest last year, he did look better. And if you can make it work, if whoever you're throwing in there as the 6th guy is actually being serviceable enough, then I say do it as long as you can. The problem is if they start to suck, you don't want to keep rolling these guys out there because it's going to be a detriment, and you hate to be in that position. Too many times last year, I felt like we pretty much were chalking up an L because we knew that our pitchers were just not going to be able to handle the job. So I don't want to be in that spot again this year. So I hope that some of these guys can carry us and some of these guys can give us more innings. I mean, we've said it before. We saw way too many times last year guys not even make it to the 5th inning. And we can't have that. You kill your bullpen that way. No matter how much talent you have in the pen, you're going to burn their arms if you have to use them for 4 or 5 innings every night. So we need to improve on that this year. We need to find a way to get guys to pitch 6 or 7 innings. I'd say 8 or 9, but that doesn't happen anymore.
Anywhere.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. I don't know, man. It's just there's a lot of what ifs with this team and the rotation. I do think we're gonna be okay, but there's a lot of question marks. Like health is gonna be a big factor in everything that happens this year.
Number one priority is the health, absolutely. With the sort of history that the Mets players do have, right? We're talking about Jose Quintana, who was down last season, Luis Severino, who's battling the injuries too, and so on and so forth. Ricardo's saying, CP, I think Adrien Hower is going to be a sleeper of all the pitchers. He is going to be good. He's very consistent. I will say I don't think he's going to be a pitcher that has an ERA in the threes. I don't think he's going to be any sort of, better than he was in Milwaukee, but he was consistent, and that's the most important thing in Milwaukee. He's a serviceable 5, and that's exactly what David Stearns knew he was getting with Adrien Hower when trading for him. So I think that if you want to classify any guys as sleepers here, right? When I think of sleeper, I think of turnaround seasons from last season and players that people might have written off. Luis Severino is my 1A for that to happen. But if, you're saying that Luis Severino is a little bit of a one-off, we all obviously expect him to be the ace that we know that he can be, still in the prime of his career, then Sean Manaea really is that probably sleeper. He struggled over the last couple of seasons. He has the arsenal. He has the upped velocity in the fastball. But, like I said, it really is how it translates to the mound, because we can see 95 go to 98, but if he's not locating that pitch, it doesn't really matter. So we'll see how that pitching lab that he went to, I believe it was Driveline Baseball, how right it got him. So we'll see, Ricardo. But I do like Adrien Hower. I'm pretty high on him, and that consistency is going to go a long way in the back end of the rotation, which the Mets had none of last season. By the way, guys, before we get into the next topic, as always, make sure you all are dropping a comment in the live chat, hitting that thumbs up, and subscribing to all 3 channels. We got Randy from the All Things Mets podcast YouTube channel. Make sure you go check them out on YouTube. Subscribe. All of our YouTubes are in the description down below. All 3 links. Subscribe. If you're subscribed to me, subscribe to these 2 guys. Vice versa. If you subscribe to them, subscribe to everyone else. You know the deal. Follow us on Interstate Mets on X. And I appreciate everyone being here. Keep dropping those chats. It is great to have conversations with you all. And also get your thoughts and opinions in the chat, not just us up here speaking about what we think. We want to hear what you all have to think as well. So moving on, this is a really huge topic. And I know we just spent 35 to 37 minutes talking about these prospects. I know we're a little bit behind, so maybe we'll try to speed it up. I know we got things to do. It's the weekend. Is there serious competition at third base for the starting job? For the third base position, Mark Vientos or Brett Baty? Is this factual? Is this front office being truthful? Or is this smoke just sort of appeasing and pleasing us Mets fans to think that Brett Baty is not just being handed this job? We all know that nobody else can really confidently be slotted into that starting DH role for the New York Mets in 2024. I'm not going to throw out DJ Stewart out there to be my everyday DH throughout the whole season, right? Right now, that is scheduled to be Mark Vientos. So if there is true competition between Mark Vientos and Brett Baty for third base, and Mark Vientos, you're telling me, has a possibility of winning the job, who's DHing for this team? That's where I think this is all smoke. I don't think there's any way Mark Vientos, unless another bat, which we'll talk about here in just a second, gets signed to this team from now until opening day. I think Brett Baty is your starting third baseman and Mark Vientos is your starting DH. And that's just a fact of the nature. The Mets do not have roster flexibility to make this a true competition. Sorry, that was long-winded. I know I gave my thoughts and opinions first. Randy, any counter arguments to that, or do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, there's no competition. I think Baty is the third baseman. He's going to be the third baseman. I'm not the highest on Vientos, man. I don't know. Defensively, he's not a good defender. Yeah, I think he's going to be in the DH spot. I think that's where Mark Vientos is going to be. But Baty, this is such an important season for him. This is a make or break season for him, man. Out of everybody, Baty, this is probably the most important season for Baty, just because in 2025, you have a whole bunch of prospects coming up, a log jam of prospects. So Baty, third base, We saw him get better down the stretch defensively, but there's no competition. This guy's the third baseman. He's going to be the third baseman.
Yeah, absolutely. Nelson, what you got? This is a loaded topic, and we know our good friend Baseball Tone, if he is here in the chat right now, catching up with us, would be in the chat saying Vientos is third baseman. But what you got for me?
Listen, I love Tone, but he's out of his mind. If you want to tell me Vientos is our full-time DH, I'm perfectly fine with that. I would have rather signed a DH because I'm not sold on Vientos, but if you want to give him that opportunity to prove himself, fine by me. After seeing how that dude played in the field last year, I cannot comfortably call him a third baseman. If you want to tell me that him spending time with Francisco Lindor magically turned him into a Gold Glover, and that we can have that conversation.
We saw what Brett Beatty did with Troy Tulowitzki, in last season, and that didn't really work out.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't always translate, right? I mean, sure, it helps a little bit, but your talent is going to get you to where you're going to get, and Vientos doesn't have that Gold Glove talent. And I'd love it if he proves me wrong. I just don't see it. I can see, like, as a confidence boost, them saying it's a competition and them giving him a shot in the spring, giving him reps there because it's spring. You can play around and do that kind of thing. But you're right. Unless we sign another bat, it just doesn't make sense. Who's going to DH? You're telling me our full-time DH is DJ Stewart? I can't get down with that. So unless we do sign a late signing of JD Martinez, then maybe Vientos does get more burn at third base, but I just don't see it. And this is Beatty's job to really to earn and to win, and maybe a little competition pushing him is a good thing. But yeah, it's like Randy said, he needs to step up because if not, we got to move on. And somebody who is it? I think it was David here. This is a good point because if both of these guys fall flat this year, Beatty and Vientos, if neither one of them show you they can do the job at third base, then it might behoove the Mets to get one of these guys reps at third base or both, because then maybe they could solve that problem for you. You never know. At this point, they can't play shortstop, so we know that. Second base is technically taken, so maybe one of those guys is our third baseman. Never know. My hope is Beatty goes out there, proves he's the guy he was, because he has a pretty good pedigree. He was very, very good in the minors. Yep. Let's hope that he figures it out and proves he can be an everyday major leaguer, and then we can not worry about all this. But if neither one of them guys can prove that they can handle the job, then yeah, I'd be looking at some of these other kids and trying to see what they can do with that job.
Do you want to touch on that, Randy? You look like you're about to speak about. Yeah, if I could say something, definitely. I'm so big. I was so big. I'm still so big on Mauricio. Okay, Ronnie Mauricio. Yeah. That's one of my favorite prospects. One of my favorite guys. I've been following him his whole career. I was hurt that I was so sad that he got hurt. This would have been a real competition if Ronnie Mauricio was there, in 2024. That would have been a real competition. Mark Vientos, Beatty, that's not a real competition. But I think 2025, or I hope to see Ronnie Mauricio in that mix for third base or maybe for second base. But what I like is also we got Jeff McNeil. He's versatile. He could play different positions, so Jeff McNeil doesn't need to be the second baseman all the time for the New York Mets. But that's my take.
And I was going to say that's a great point, because that's where you can sort of slot Jeff McNeil over to left field, especially if something happens to Harrison Bader, he's just not performing well or whatnot. Then you'll have McNeil as your left fielder. Nimmo goes over to center field, and that's exactly where you'll see a spot open up for Mr. Luis Angel Acuna or Jet Williams, right, for that second base role. So that is not out of the question as well. But is it really feasible? Because I know in the previous Interstate Mets report, like months ago, in order to like see these kids come up onto the Major League diamond, I was like, well, I would like to see Luis Angel Acuna or Jet Williams get reps at third base. But is that really feasible? Because I'm not really sure. Listen, I don't know. The stature is what it is. I get it. I mean, we've seen shorter third basemen, understand, whatever. But the arm talent. Like, I don't know where to evaluate Luis Angel Acuna's or Jet Williams' arm talent defensively. Do you have anything on that, Nelson? Because I'm just not sure how they translate there.
I need to see more. I need to see them play the position. I don't think either one of them have played that position.
I don't think so.
They both seem to have decent arms, but that I said, unless I see it like more routinely, I can't say. I don't want to say it based off of them playing second or short because it's not quite the same. They are small kids, right? So maybe it's not feasible, but you got to at least, if Batty and Vientos are both just stinking it up and you got these guys in the minors still looking for a spot, you might as well try, right?
Right.
Whether it works out or not, you might as well give it a shot because, yeah, I love Mauricio too. He didn't look exactly great at third base. I like him as a second baseman.
Me too. Me too. Me too.
Play second. But yeah, then we still need a third baseman. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of question marks, and that's why this year is about evaluating this talent and figuring these things out. So yeah, I don't know. That's a great point. You don't know if these are very small kids. They are tiny. Can't lie about that. They're short kings, but short guys can play baseball too. So we'll see.
Yeah, at third base you need arm strength. Third base you need arm strength. And Vientos, you saw some arm strength with Vientos, last year. But Batty, he doesn't have the arm strength like a Mauricio, a Vientos. Like, you've seen the difference of the cannon of the arms. Like, that's a big deal, so.
And that's something I pointed out on my X account. Like I said, if you don't follow me at CPNY Sports, I saw videos of Brett Batty taking grounders, and I went into my little fielding guru sort of mindset. And I was just like, dude, this guy, with how many times he doubled and triple clutch in 2023 from third base, like, he needs – like, I'm not sure how well that arm plays, and that's why I'm not expecting anything more from Brett Batty defensively, minus maybe just cutting down on the fielding errors. The throwing is always going to be an issue for him, especially on those backhands where he needs to really rear back, and that's where you're right, Randy. Vientos has a one-up on him, and Mauricio, for sure, with his cannon of an arm, definitely has a one-up on him. And you're right, Mauricio would have been that competition, if not at second base, right? If they weren't projecting him at second base, definitely for third base, at least to just say that there is competition there. But he also would have been competition, I truly believe, with Mark Vientos as the everyday DH, and you have a little lefty-righty there, and we're not even talking about DJ Stewart at that point. Like, we wouldn't be talking about him because he would definitely be in the minor leagues to start the season off. I fully believe that. But nonetheless, we are in this position. It sucks. Ronnie Mauricio's not here. I wish him a speedy recovery. Hopefully he comes back stronger in 2025. But like I said, nothing's guaranteed of any of these guys rotating in and out. While the Mets are trying to plug and play these positions, nothing is guaranteed or set in stone there. And we do have a Mariners fan in the chat. So shout out you. Appreciate you checking out the stream.
Kind of quick on the arm strength thing. And these are just scouting grades, so you never know.
Right.
Baseball America scouting grade on Acuna is a 60 for his arm, which is above average. So maybe actually it's plus, considered plus. Maybe he could make it work at third base. You never know. It does grade a little bit better than Williams was at a 55, which is above average, but he seems to profile more at second base or center. I don't know. I don't know if they'll even give either guy a third base glove, but it's just something to think about if we end up in a situation where these two look terrible and we're scrambling to find a guy to play third.
Oh, man.
Hey, you know that there's a certain free agent out there next season that is a third baseman that hits the open market. Not sure if you guys know, but the guy from Houston.
Alex Bregman, baby.
Could be an option. And also there's a lot of like different situations with third basemen around the league in terms of trading. What was that? Matt Chapman? Matt Chapman. What's his face? MEZ said that about Matt Chapman. I wonder how much his price has gone down. Don't even get us started on that. I mean, realistically though, Nelson, like that could make sense at this point, but like it's not gonna happen. Let's be honest with you. Like, let's be honest here, it's not gonna happen. So,
And just a shout out to our guy Tone, who's always if
shout
he
out
wasn't
Tone.
plugging Chapman, it's Vientos. I'm not with him, but we'll see.
Yeah. Ricardo saying Batty lacks range, and the most important thing you need at third base is to make up for everything and that you're lacking in arm strength, which he lacks, right? Yeah. So yeah, absolutely, I agree. The footwork, like with Vientos, we know is awful, but Brett Batty doesn't really excel in his footwork either. Like I said, a lot of heel clicking 2 to 3 times before he's able to let that ball go because he just knows that he doesn't have the arm. And like I said, I'm not saying that he has below average arm. He graded out statistically as just simply average per Baseball Savant, but you can definitely tell just by the naked eye and watching Brett Batty that the arm strength is just definitely not plus enough to make up in the other aspects of fielding that he lacks, which Ricardo is here saying perfectly. So absolutely agree with you. We'll see what happens at third base, but let's move on because Francisco Lindor was asked, did an interview at his locker, was asked some unique questions. We have 2 Francisco Lindor comments back to back here that we'll be talking about. The first one is the injury situation that he was going through last season, which honestly, I didn't even know the full extent of, to be honest with you. This kind of surprised me, but this just makes him look like some sort of like superhuman being if this was the case. And I'm pretty sure Francisco Lindor would not lie about his, such an injury that he went through. So he said, and I quote to the reporter, a lot of discomfort he was feeling, and it started on day 5 of spring training last year in 2023. And he said he didn't want to go get an MRI or an X-ray because he knew it would reveal something that the trainers would not let him play through. And you see the statistics that he put up even given this fact. Hit 254. OBP was phenomenal. I take that OBP all day long. I'm not going to lie to you. I know Brandon Nimmo was a little higher, but Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor are not the same player. We all know that. OPS over 800. Always like to see that when that number's over 800. 30-plus home runs. Not many shortstops in the league are doing that. Almost close to 100 RBIs. 33 doubles and 120 OPS plus. This is something where he did all of that and put up those numbers. And I know like I'm sounding like I'm homering for the guy right now, but given this injury, to be honest with you, and just the simple fact that this fan base likes to disrespect Francisco Lindor more often than not for some reason, right? What have you. This is phenomenal to see that he put up that type of season. And when he's now healthy, which he said he is going into the season, he feels great. Elbow feels good. Maybe we're going to see even more of an unleashed type of Francisco Lindor in 2024 above what we saw that was impressive in 2023. What do you think, Randy?
I think historically you have seen that Francisco Lindor has been a second half player his whole career. So I think he's going to start off slow. I mean, I hope that he doesn't. I hope that he breaks, the streak. But this guy always starts off slow in the first half and then he cranks it up in the second half. But these numbers are really, really good for, especially if he was injured or if he had any type of injury. I don't think he was lying. But man, Lindor is a very important player for the Mets. And I just hope that he breaks a streak. I hope he has a really good first half and a really good second half and an MVP or a really, really great season. One of his best seasons as a Met and as a baseball player. I hope, he hit 31 home runs. He's not the biggest power guy. That is a lot of home runs for Francisco Lindor, though. So yeah,
absolutely.
I think I like him. I like everything Francisco Lindor brings. I just hope that in the first half of the season, he does well and he doesn't, slack off or anything. And also Lindor, you've seen him when the guys are on primetime TV, Lindor gets hype, you've seen that the game against the Yankees, those 3 home runs. This is a perfect example. Like this guy is a guy that loves the stage. He loves New York. He loves prime time. So I just hope this guy has a good first half and second half and a really good season.
I agree with you because, like, imagine if he did start off strong off the gate and put together like a complete season, right? I agree with you, Randy. Absolutely. That is something that we've even talked about on the show, right? Nelson, going into last year about his first half and him cranking it up and being a second half player. So, what do you think, Nelson? I know this is a guy, Lindor, phenomenal, middle of the order. Randy just said it. Loves the stage, loves New York, has embraced New York, and has stuck it out as a true sort of New York franchise type player through and through. The media questions, always answering those questions, always being available, and not sort of putting it on anybody else and giving those sort of tough answers to tough questions in New York media. What's your thoughts and opinions on Lindor?
I mean, I was a broken record last year defending this guy. He's always, like Randy said, he's a second half player. But even if that's the case, like, he wasn't bad necessarily in the first half last year. The one thing that stood out was his batting average was pretty low. His power numbers were there, the speed were there, everything was there except for his average was lacking a little bit. And then he bumped that up to 254. Listen, these numbers are phenomenal. And yes, he was injured. He did have a bone spur removed after the season. Um, he says the discomfort started in spring, which is insane. He said he was dealing with inflammation throughout the year. And the guy never sat. The guy showed up the day his kid was born. And he got in the game. He pinch hit. Like, the dude refuses to not play. He's always out there. He is a leader for as many people as they say he's not a leader. To me, what proves that you are a leader more than that? The fact that you are willing to go out there every day, whether you're hurt or not, the fact that you put in work with these kids in the offseason, he didn't have to do that. He could freaking blow these dudes off. He doesn't have to spend his time working with Vientos, and apparently Brett Beatty too was working with him in Orlando at some point this offseason. So, like, this guy is a leader. I would give him a captaincy. I don't care about that kind of stuff, but I know it's been a big argument. But yeah, I expect as long as he's healthy, Francisco Lindor is going to put up Francisco Lindor numbers because he does it every year. He had one bad season his first year when he got here. Other than that, he's been consistent throughout his whole career. The guy shows up to play. He shows up in the big spots. The narrative that he's not clutch is just false.
Yep.
I mean, he's my guy, so I'm going to defend him, but I can be objective. If he were not doing the job, I would say it. But to me, like, he's the least of our worries. I'm extremely happy to have him on the team. And I hope that I do hope that somehow, if he were to somehow start the season off hot and ride that throughout the year, that would be amazing because then really nobody would have shit to say. So I hope it happens, but to be honest, I'm going to expect the normal Lindor. He's going to start off a little slow, and then he's going to pick it up when the weather starts to warm up. It's what he does. That's who he is.
That's what he does.
Absolutely. I agree with you. That's a perfect take. And I guess, like you said, Lindor is the least of our worries in terms of this lineup, right? And a lineup that is definitely top heavy with Nimmo and whoever you plug in at the two, whether it's McNeil or Marte, Lindor and Pete, and then Alvarez probably emerging as that maybe number 5. But speaking on that, would you all reorder this lineup? And with Lindor moving from the 3rd spot, would you reorder this lineup as it stands? Let's say there's no offensive upgrades from now until the end of the offseason, opening day. Would you move Lindor? I think there's really only 2 spots you can move him if he's not hitting 3. Actually, no, there's 3 spots. If he's not hitting 3, you can make him a leadoff hitter and move Brandon Nimmo down to the cleanup spot. Or you can just flip-flop Brandon Nimmo, or you can flip-flop Lindor and Pete Alonso, or with the numbers and just through the naked eye of Lindor batting in the 2 spot, he loves to bat in the 2 spot, has great success doing it. I'm curious to get the actual numbers on it, but you can bat him at 2 as well, and maybe Brandon Nimmo 3. Would you all reorder the lineup, Randy? This is a hot topic amongst all Mets fans right now. Like, with the current lineup needing some sort of revamp and needing protection behind Pete Alonso, that's been the talk all offseason. If you don't go out and sign anybody else to be that protection, would you reorder and have Francisco Lindor either bat 2, lead off, or clean up behind Pete?
I mean, I think if the Mets wanted to sign someone, or they were going to sign someone, they would have signed a guy like JD Martinez already, in my opinion. But when it comes to the lineup, I'm glad we got on this topic because that's just what I was thinking about. Brandon Nimmo, man, what a season that he had last year, man. He had, to me, he looked like the MVP of the Mets last season. He really had a great season, but he showed power, and that's what I liked about Brandon Nimmo. This guy doesn't need to hit home runs, but I think for the Mets team, it helps. It helps the Mets because the Mets don't have a lot of power. They have Pete Alonso. They have, a Francisco Alvarez. But Francisco Alvarez this is going to be his second year in the big leagues. But Brandon Nimmo, I want him in a different spot. I don't want him in the leadoff spot anymore. Me personally, I want him in, I would say, maybe a third spot, like you said, Chris. Maybe a cleanup. I think it's too big for him. I don't think I want to see Brandon Nimmo as the cleanup hitter. Pete Alonso, hands down, should be your cleanup hitter. That's the best guy on the team power-wise. That should be in my opinion, your power, your cleanup guy. But Brandon Nimmo, I want to see him in maybe a fifth spot, or fifth spot. Yeah, I'll say fifth spot or sixth spot because where are you going to put Jeff McNeil too? Jeff McNeil is also important. So maybe you lead off with a Jeff McNeil, and then you have Lindor, and in the second spot, and then you have a Brandon Nimmo, and then an Alonso, and then an Alvarez. Maybe it's a hard lineup. This is not an easy thing to talk about, but I think this guy, Brandon Nimmo, I want to see him in a different spot because I felt like that would have helped the team even last year. Not having him in the leadoff spot, a different spot. I like him. I like what he has improved as a player, man. I love Brandon Nimmo. And I wasn't the highest guy on Brandon Nimmo, which is hilarious, but he changed my mind completely. Defensively, offensively, out of Brandon Nimmo, Michael Conforto, I thought Michael Conforto was going to be the guy, but Brandon Nimmo ended up being the guy. And I love Brandon Nimmo, what he brings to the table. I don't know if you heard him on New York Post podcast. He also talked about just the team, and he just seems like almost a captain type. I like what he brings, but the lineup, I want Brandon Nimmo in a different spot. Let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think, and Nelson, before you go, I think Brandon Nimmo definitely does play well. His OBP didn't really dip that much when he hit for increased power. I think it was like maybe a 1/10 of a point off or something like that. And he hit 24 home runs, and his home runs been going up steadily over the last 3 years. And I think that this is a guy that has that leadoff type stigma within this Mets fan base, but I think it'd be definitely plausible to move him. I'm not saying that is the end all be all. If you do, you can try it out. If it doesn't work, move him back to the leadoff spot. But I'm just saying that you do have options, and it would be probably in the Mets' best interest to maybe play around with that. Just as a side nugget, shout out Darren checking into the chat. Appreciate you. And Jeff is saying, shameless plug, his podcast, Baseball and Barbecue, dropping tomorrow, will feature an interview from Trevor May. Okay, awesome, Jeff. Jeff, put your @ in the comments. I wonder if I'm subscribed to your channel already. Make sure, or if it's Spotify, drop whatever the name is. If it's on Spotify, let me know. But if it's a YouTube @ let me know. And if you have your own podcast on X, an account, I'll follow that as well. So drop it in the chat. I appreciate it. Thank you you guys are always welcome to plug stuff that you guys are doing. No shamelessness here. Plug it. Don't care. We support everybody. Anyways. Oh, never mind. Go ahead, Nelson.
Yeah. The problem I have with moving Nimmo off the leadoff spot is I don't really think we have another leadoff hitter unless you do want to try Lindor there. To me, McNeil doesn't make sense because McNeil chases the first pitch a lot, like a lot. He has a habit of doing that. He's very aggressive at the plate. Also, I'm not the biggest McNeil guy. I'm not convinced he's going to bounce back. I want to see how he didn't really adjust all that great to the rule changes last year. I want to see how he does this year. Maybe he proves me wrong, but I just don't love it. I feel like you kind of need to leave Nimmo alone. I want to try something real quick because we were talking about I hope this doesn't screw everything up. So
what do you think about Bader? Maybe Bader in the leadoff spot? I don't know. I mean,
Bader just doesn't hit enough, man.
Or maybe a Marte. I don't know.
Marte, assuming, I don't know, is this showing up for you?
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah, I
All
can
right.
see it.
So this is sorry, this was a little impromptu, but this is Lindor's numbers hitting from the first spot. If you see here, 2018 and 2019 is when he really did it the most. Well, he had very solid seasons. Let's see, 2018, 274, 37 homers, 122 runs, 90 RBI. 2019, 285, 32 homers, 101 101 runs, 73 RBI. So I mean, he's proven he can do it. He would be the one guy I would try there. Let's see. Let's look. You can actually. We'll keep going through his numbers. Batting second. He didn't.
I'm curious about this. This is what I was curious about. The second, because I knew he was a great leadoff hitter for Cleveland, but how does he bat and project second in lineup?
Second, I mean, 2022, he only had 28 games there. Did solid. Last year, only 243, but he did have 12 homers, 46 runs, 38 RBIs. 2021 seems like the year he hit second the most. That was a down year for him overall. So I don't know. It's not horrible, but I've actually seen. I expected those numbers to be a little better, if I'm being honest. He's hit third. He hit the most. He hit third pretty much all of 2016. He hit third a lot in 2022, actually. 133 games in 2022. He looked pretty good there. Cleanup, has he ever hit cleanup? Not much. Hit cleanup a little bit last year. He barely has ever hit one game ever in his career batting fifth. Never batted sixth, interesting enough. And you're not.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's face it,
only
hit
third or leadoff makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say you first, second, or third. It looks like. Stop sharing the screen. Hopefully, this didn't screw everything up. There we go.
There we go.
All right, did that on the fly. Oh, sorry about that, but could you guys see that? Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
I saw it great.
Cool. So
that was a good segue, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, you can hit him first, second, and third, but I don't know. I feel like you leave Nimmo first. If you want to play around with other guys, moving them around, I guess you can, but it's tough to do that with this lineup because we didn't get we that guy to protect Pete.
Yeah, we didn't get a Soler, we didn't get a Martinez, we didn't get that type, like you said, to protect Pete Alonso, and that's why I feel like we need to change something in the lineup. But maybe if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I think it's worth a try. I think it's worth a try.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what spring's for, right? Like I'm sure Mendoza's going to play around with the lineups a little bit, see what he thinks works. I'm sure they'll get together with the analytics guys and everybody will get their printouts and they'll figure out what works best. So we'll see, but I really feel like Nimmo's probably going to be our leadoff guy. Everything else, who knows? I mean, ideally, Marte figures his crap out and he's killing it in the two hole, and that lengthens the hell out of this lineup. I don't have high hopes for that, but in a perfect world, that would happen, and the Mets, I think, will look in tremendous shape if we can get any respectable numbers on Starling Marte.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of like I'm leaning toward. Like, we all know the classic lineup would be Nimmo, Marte, probably for me in the two hole. Lindor, Pete, and Alvarez. That's really the only sort of lineup that you can make at that point, because honestly, I don't like Starling Marte at the 5 hole, and that would be the sort of option beside Francisco Alvarez to be that protection, quote unquote, for Pete Alonso. So like Teddy's saying here, leave Lindor at 3, but the better question is, who do you put behind Pete? Who can you put behind Pete? Because we just said, outside of Nimmo, the only other leadoff hitter on this team, right, is probably going to be Francisco Lindor. I honestly don't want to see anything out of Harrison Bader leading off. That guy can be the turnover lineup guy at 9, keep him down there.
I
But
don't want to put pressure
it's an
on
interesting.
Alvarez, but it's gonna have to be Alvarez. Like, let's
It's
face
gonna
it.
have.
yeah.
I agree. It's gonna have to be Alvarez. But is he ready for that spot? Is he ready for that spot? Is
That's the question.
Francisco Alvarez strikes out a lot. Is he ready for that spot? This guy goes on a 0 for 17 stretch at times. This guy. I just hope that he improves. I need Francisco Alvarez to improve, man. In offensively, yeah. I need him to be. I need him to be that guy. We all need him to be that guy, right? Behind Alonso to protect Alonso. But is that too much on the guy? I don't know. This guy is young, man. He's 22 years old, right? 22.
He's 22. So that's why putting that pressure on him doesn't really make sense, especially if he tapered off last season. So that's why we're trying to mitigate. So I can already foresee it. Opening the 8 lineup comes out, and it's Marte batting 5th. I'm just like, all right, whatever. Anyways, we'll get to that road when it gets here. Meanwhile, in Syracuse, New York, Nimmo versus right-handed pitcher and Marte versus left-handed 5-hole. I mean, I guess you can do that, but platooning a 5-hole makes no sense. It would just make more sense to go sign an everyday guy that you can put in the 5-hole. But that's neither here nor there. But that's a perfect segue. So shout out to you for dropping that comment, because that comment is a perfect segue to this topic of, are the Mets really done this offseason? Because Mr. Francisco Lindor, in the very same interview that he received, he basically said, he was asked on the thoughts and opinions on the offseason, and he gave this answer. He said, I like it. The Mets front office had a plan, and they executed it. I feel like there's a couple of other pieces pertaining to what David Stearns has been saying and alluding to. We don't know if he's just going off of what David Stearns has been saying to the media, or there's conversations with your franchise player behind closed doors in terms of those strategies, which now he probably revealed to everybody else and gave a little bit of segue to. But what do you all think? With just based off of this Francisco Lindor comment to the media, I'm not sure if he, meant for it to slip up and release out there, because David Stearns is probably like, what are you doing, Lindor? Like this is supposed to be in-house. But what do you think? Is this just sort of like a cliche type of answer to give the media, or do you all definitely think that something is cooking up with Mr. David Stearns and potentially bringing in, we'd all probably think that it's going to be a bat, but nonetheless, what do you think about this, Randy?
Oh man, if this is in any way true, then good to hear, because I think, and I know a lot of people want to give Vientos a chance, and I get it, and I know some people are not high on Vientos, and that makes sense also. But man, JD Martinez is still out there. I'll give him 2 years, 1 year, one opt out, whatever, man. Put him in the lineup. I've been thinking the Mets have needed a DH for years, man, and we haven't had a real DH. Don't get me started on Daniel Vogelback last year. Okay, so JD Martinez, why not? Why not? If this guy is really cooking, David Stern, 1 or 2 moves. I mean, I don't know what other moves you maybe a bat and maybe a bullpen piece. But I don't know. Maybe it's too late. But these guys are still out there. There's still guys in the market. Spring training hasn't even started yet. It's going to be starting soon. Like, was it 9-8 days away? 7? It's real close, right? Yeah,
absolutely. Nelson, what you got?
Honestly, I have no idea what the hell Francisco Lindor was doing, because I really feel like he opened his mouth when he shouldn't have. Not that it's a big deal. I think fans have been wanting more moves all off season, so it's not going to make a difference. But I don't think Stearns would have wanted him to say this. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right.
I don't know if he really I don't know if he's actually, like you said, been talking to Stearns, or if he's just hearing what Stearns been saying and ran with it. But like Randy said, there still are guys out there, so it is a possibility. You don't know, like, all this time. Spring training officially starts Monday, I believe. These guys got to sign eventually, right? They want to play this year, I'm assuming. So, like, I don't know if prices are dropping, maybe years are dropping. Does Stearns decide late to pounce on something if it becomes available? Is Cody Bellinger going to be our DH? Just kidding. But I mean, you never know, right? Like, it's so crazy that some of these big names are still out there. Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, like these guys are still sitting there.
It's
But
insane. It's insane.
yeah, it
It's
really is
it's it's
insane.
literally insane. It's crazy to me. Crazy to
And
me. These guys are still out
Scott
there.
Boras for you. That's Scott Boras for you.
and JD's like the one guy we've been like super tied to. I don't know what he's looking for. I don't know if he's just hoping another team will jump in and drive his price up, or if teams are just not budging and they're like, we're not giving you what you want, bro. So it's like a game of chicken, like who's gonna blink first. So I don't know, man. I'd be nice. I would love to see. I've said it all off season. I've said it even prior to the off season. I wanted a DH. Like, been dying for a DH. So if we could get a JD, that'd be awesome. If we could find a way to lengthen that lineup, I'm all for it. But if it doesn't happen, like Francisco said, I'm good with where the team's at. Sure, I think we might be a few pieces short.
Yeah.
Brandon Belt, I like that name. I see M-Easy. I know me and him have had some back and forth. Apologize, but Brandon Belt is not a horrible name either to throw in the mix. Yeah, there's guys out there. There's guys available.
Yeah, I like Eddie Rosario too. Sanders
Eddie
also
Rosario
mentioned
too.
that.
I've been talking about Eddie Rosario myself.
I like that as well.
Yeah, I mean anything that can help, I'm all for. But yeah, I'm with Lindor. I don't think this team's in a bad spot. I think they're decent enough that they will compete. And we'll see where it goes from there. This isn't going to be the same team we see on opening day. It is definitely not going to be the same team we see at the end of the year. There's going to be moves made. There's going to be guys coming up. So things are going to change. So we shall see. Right now, I'm just excited. I want the games to start. I want to see some guys play and see what they look like and see what Mendoza does with these lineups, because that is going to be interesting. I know those lineups don't always translate to what we see on opening day, but it does give you some hints. So it'll be, I want to see what that first lineup looks like on spring training.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was some smoke about Liam Hendricks and him still being out there as a bullpen piece. And I know it's probably not credible, but I mean, they're saying that the Mets could be interested there.
Anyway, isn't he? Like,
I don't know. Is he out for this year, or is this a Brandon Woodruff situation 2.0? I don't know. But Brandon Woodruff, another guy that's like not going to be appearing in this season, but the Mets are still holding out maybe some hope about signing him. I know the shoulder injury, and means you're going to say don't sign him because the shoulder injury. I understand, but nonetheless, he is an option as well. Absolutely. But like I said, I've been talking about Eddie Rosario. It makes sense to bring in lefty bat, whether it's Rosario or Brandon Belt. I understand that it would be a platoon at that point, right? Presumably, and it would take away Mark Vientos' some of his at bats, and I know that wouldn't make much sense if this is a developmental year, anyways. But also, side nugget. Mark Vientos actually hit better by a smidge against righties than lefties anyways last season. So he's capable of hitting both. Eddie Rosario is a guy that hit 18 of his, I believe, 21 home runs off of right-handed pitching. So he's a guy that dominates righties. Would really be a true platoon type role. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens throughout the rest of the way, given these Francisco Lindor comments on what the Mets may or may not have cooking up. Side nugget here, we do have Subway to Shea, and make sure you go check out his podcast, not only on Spotify, but also on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Shout out Ant checking in on his way back from work. And this is perfect segue that you're here now, Ant, because Sanders is asking if All Things Mets Randy is going to be on the Latin Roundtable organized by Tone. Now, I can't speak for that, but that is a situation that is happening. It's going to be a great stream. It's going to be very an important stream. I know Tone is plugging it out there. It's very important to him. So, Nelson, I'm going to give you the floor to sort of plug and play that stream that you and Ant from Subway to Shea are going to be appearing in, as well as Keith from Shea and Sons.
Yeah, this is, I mean, I don't want to speak out of turn because this is totally Tone's baby. I'm just a part of it.
Sure.
As far as I know, it's me, Tone, Ant from Subway to Shea, and then the Shea and Sons. I don't know if he's inviting anybody else. But that is February 21st, Wednesday at 8 p.m. We'll be doing that together. I don't know money details. I don't know if we're just going to be shooting the shit or what are we doing exactly. But it'll be fun, man. Tone's a good dude. All of those dudes are good dudes. So I'm excited for it. It's a good platform. If we do this in the future and Randy isn't a part of it this go around, it'd be great to have him do it next go around. I don't know obviously you seem like you're Latino. I don't know your exact background.
I am.
But yeah, man. I mean, I think all 4 of us are Puerto Rican. Well, 5 if Key is on too. So it'll be a cool little Puerto Rican get together on the 21st. So yeah, check that out. Support everybody on there. It'll be a good time.
Absolutely. That is going down. Make sure you check them out on that day. I'll be there trying to support depending on what I'm doing. I'm going to try to make it, especially if it's on my phone. I'll be in the live chat supporting the boys. Like I said, it's a very, very cool content community. Whether it's on YouTube, X, wherever that people put their content out. That's how, I got to meet Randy here. That's why you're up here. We sort of just connected, and we want to get as many guests as possible, try to spread the platform. And, we're happy that you can make it today. Absolutely. We had a great discussion as well. And right before we sort of get out of here, I did it last stream on the Interstate Mets Report last Friday, and I'm going to do it again today. It's going to be a little bit of a trivia question before we get out of here. We do have the question. I'll pose it to the chat. Make sure you all are commenting in the live chat what you think the WL record was for the great Tom Seaver in the 1969 season. Make sure you comment. I'll give us all maybe 20 seconds here to sort of guess what the record is. I'm not going to guess because I put this together, so I'm not going to guess. But definitely Randy and Nelson, give your guesses. The chat, give your guesses on what the win-loss record was for Tom Seaver in the 1969 season. Gents, do you have any even preliminary guesses as to what it was?
Man, I don't really I don't think I know.
It's a pretty elite record. I will say it's a pretty elite record for a starting pitcher.
Pretty elite record. Are we? So we're just going win-loss record, win-loss, right? No,
win-loss,
no ERA.
just win-loss, strictly win-loss. Yep.
Man,
Definitely, he will definitely won more than 20 games. I can't give you an exact number though.
Carlos is saying 22-5. Darren is saying 25-7. What do y'all think?
25
number out there before. What was that?
25-6 for me, I think.
25-6. Okay, Nelson, give it your best go.
I would have said 23 and 8, maybe something along those lines. I don't know.
All right, this is the answer. It is 25-7 win-loss record.
Whoa.
You are so close, Randy. You are so close. Teddy guessed at the last second 24-8. And Darren, definitely longtime supporter of the podcast. I know that for sure was correct. And 25-7.
Wow.
Very impressive. Randy, you got very close there. Close there.
That was wow. That was a guess.
I told you last time we did this. If you give me 90s Mets trivia, I will never miss. But you just get me before the 80s, and I'm struggling.
I was looking for some 90s trivia questions. I didn't have enough time to go and actually get the 90s, but I'm going to go, and Jay's putting in 2.21 ERA. I'm going to go and get a 90s trivia question to see and test that 90s knowledge from Nelson.
That man the franchise, and he has a statue in front of Citi Field.
There's a reason why we have a studio after him in SOY.
Absolutely. Legend. Absolute legend. Guys, this was so fun. Randy, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. The beautiful palm tree here. We are approaching spring training here, like you said, just about a week away. Blue skies, no longer gray skies. Hopefully, I know where we all live is not the case, but definitely in Florida for these Mets players. We got a brand new logo. Not only do we have a brand new logo for the Interstate Mets Report, but Nelson and I have brand new logos for our YouTube channels. If you're scrolling and looking at the content and you see a different logo than what you're used to out of us too, that is the new logo. We posted on our X accounts earlier today. We had a couple different options, got people's opinions, and we went with these logos. So make sure you check them out. We appreciate it. Hopefully they're visually appealing enough. And it's fun, man.
I got to say something right here, right now. Next season, spring training, the Interstate Mets Report has to figure out how to get to spring training for Florida and do a show at spring training. We got to do it. We got a year to figure it out. We got to do it.
Yeah. Oh, wait. I zoned out for a second with Sanders' comment. What were you saying? At spring training, right?
Next year for spring training, we have to figure out a way to both make it to Port St. Lucie and do a show at spring training next year.
Yeah.
We've got a year to figure it out. We got to do it.
Yeah, let's do it because Rob is actually Talking Mets with Rob, another podcaster, Mets YouTube guy that we do videos with. Randy also is moving to Florida, he said. So I'm already going to be talking to him about it. Nelson, if you want in, let me know. We all meet down there, do a little bit of a live show from Port St. Lucie would be awesome. Anybody else that's, listening to this wants to meet up with us, let me know. And guys in the Mets content community, happy to have you. But yeah, absolutely, Nelson. We got a year to figure it out. Obviously, it's a little bit too late for this year, but absolutely, that'd be fun. I've been meaning to get out there. Haven't gone out there for any Mets spring training games at all before, but that would be awesome. Sanders is saying CPNY Sports for DH, all things Mets for third base, and Amish Country Mets fan for starting second pitcher behind Kodai Senga. Absolutely.
I can't pitch worth crap.
I got the arm strength. I got the arm strength.
Guys, it's been so fun. Randy, send us up out of here. Last thoughts, preliminary thoughts. Plug your stuff. Where can they find you? I'll prop up your YouTube here for everybody to subscribe to. And just last words on the show, man. We appreciate you having. We appreciate you coming on.
Man, I appreciate being here. It was good to talk to you guys. You guys are awesome. Definitely, yeah. You could follow me on on YouTube, All Things Mets. On Twitter. Or X or whatever you want to say, Randy Talks Mets. Definitely, I talk Mets. I love Mets. I've been a Mets fan my whole life. So yeah, if you want to check out the channel, subscribe, like, whatever. Definitely, I got streams. I got videos, a whole bunch of Mets content, and I'm gonna be collabing with a whole bunch of guys, and some surprises on the way too. So stay tuned.
Awesome, Nelson. Last words here on this lovely February 16th, the long weekend ahead of us.
No, man, great stuff as always. Thank you, Randy, for joining us. It was good meeting you. I never talked to you before, so it was cool getting to chat. Hopefully we do it again in the future. Thank you, CP, for putting this all together and doing the graphics and everything. I know we kind of just went on a whim and started making our own logos. We kind of created something I think kind of cool with the Interstate thing there. So look forward to 2024 and everything it'll bring. And thank you everyone for watching. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and let's go Mets.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go Mets. Shout out everyone in the chat. We wouldn't be doing this without you guys. Thank you for supporting each and every week. Whether you tune in live and drop those comments or catch the rerun, we definitely appreciate you. The support means a lot to us, so definitely thank you so much. This has been really fun. And keep an eye out this season. We're going to be doing post-game live streams as well. A lot of post-game lives are already on our channel from last season. We started that up, but we didn't really have as much of a following. Nobody really knew who we were. We were just kind of talking to ourselves and maybe 2 or 3 other people. If you all are looking for post-game live streams, not only Nelson and I, but Matt from Sunny Days in Flushing. I'm going to actually put his link in the description down below as well after this. We're going to be doing post-game lives in some sort of capacity, so stay tuned to that. We got a lot more things coming, a lot more live streams, especially when the in-season games. I know a lot of you are new joining here in the off-season, but we got in-season content too, post-game lives. You'll get our immediate reactions, game analysis, all that good stuff. As always on this stream, hit that thumbs up. As always, we appreciate the support on all streams. Nelson and I's, make sure you hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to all 3 channels. And thank you so much for listening. Make sure, as always, at Interstate Mets on X and all the usual shameless plugging that we do here. We appreciate it. One more week until spring training. Thank you so much, like I said, for the support. We got baseball finally back soon, and it's a great time to be a Mets fan. I'm not gonna lie to you. Teddy's making a bold prediction: 50+ home runs for Pete. Let's go Mets, guys. This is your boy CP with Randy from All Things Mets and Nelson from Amish Country Mets Fan. Another episode of the Interstate Mets Report is in the books, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.
Thank you for watching the Interstate Mets Report. Streaming Tuesdays at 5 p.m. and Fridays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe